When Marcus Reed saw his untouchable CEO crying alone at 3 in the morning, he never imagined she'd ask him to fake being
Route
her
59
boyfriend
suspended?
at a high
No way.
society wedding just
This is
36
unbelievable.
hours
Now
later.
what?
One desperate lie.
I've been
one
waiting for this
impossible
moment.
request,
Me too,
one
it's
chance to see
perfect.
the
I love
woman
you.
behind the armor.
I love you too.
The nor'easter hit Boston like a fist. Marcus stood at the bus stop on Boylston Street, collar turned up against wind that screamed between buildings and sent snow spinning in vicious spirals. His cheap coat, bought 3 years ago at a clearance sale, he'd rather forget, did almost nothing against cold that knifed through fabric and settled deep in his bones. Around him the city had gone ghost town empty. Smart people were home. Safe people were warm. Marcus was neither. He checked his phone for the 4th time in as many minutes. The tracker app showed a red exclamation point and a message that made his stomach drop: Route 39 suspended due to weather conditions. He refreshed it twice, as if pixels might rearrange themselves into something more forgiving. They didn't. His daughter Lily was at his mother's house across town, safe-fed, probably already asleep with her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She didn't know her father was stranded downtown at nearly midnight on a Thursday because he'd stayed late again trying to salvage a quarterly report that his supervisor would probably tear apart anyway. She didn't know the overtime he logged wouldn't translate to extra pay, just a nod of acknowledgement if he was lucky. She didn't know her father was barely holding it together most days, that the careful routine they'd built since her mother died felt like a house of cards in a windstorm. Marcus exhaled hard enough to see his breath fog white in the dark. The street was empty except for a single taxi crawling past its off-duty light, glowing like a taunt. $80 to get home. That was 2 days of groceries. Lily needed new cleats for soccer. The choice wasn't really a choice. He started walking. His apartment was 45 minutes away on foot in good weather. Tonight it would take over an hour. His fingers were already going numb inside threadbare gloves. 3 blocks in, something made him stop. The office building rose 32 floors into the storm, all glass and steel, and the kind of architectural arrogance that said, money without needing to whisper. Most windows were black. The cleaning crews had packed up and gone home hours ago. But on the 32nd floor, the executive level, the floor Marcus had only visited twice in 4 years, and both times felt like a peasant summoned to court, a single light burned behind floor-to-ceiling windows. The corner office. Her office. Claire Sterling's name was whispered in break rooms with the kind of reverence people usually reserved for natural disasters. She was the CEO of Sterling & Associates, a woman who'd inherited her father's consulting firm at 31 and turned it into something twice as ruthless and 3 times as profitable. She had a reputation for working 18-hour days, firing people over typos, and never ever letting anyone see her sweat. The quarterly all-hands meetings she led were clinical, efficient, terrifying. She spoke in bullets and expected the same. Weakness wasn't tolerated. Mistakes were remembered. Marcus had been in the same room as her exactly 4 times. She'd never once looked him in the eye. And now, at midnight in the middle of a nor'easter, her light was still on. He should have kept walking, should have put his head down and pushed through the snow and made it home before hypothermia became a real concern. But something about that single point of light burning alone while the rest of the city went dark stopped him cold. The memory hit without warning: another snowy night 3 years ago. Jessica in the driver's seat, exhausted from a 12-hour shift at the hospital. Marcus already in the passenger seat, too comfortable to suggest switching, too selfish. The patch of black ice on Route 2, the telephone pole that came too fast, the silence after Metals stopped screaming. He'd survived because he wasn't driving. Jessica died because he'd been too proud to make a fuss. Marcus turned toward the building. The lobby was unlocked, which surprised him. The night security guard George, a guy in his 60s who always had a thermos of coffee and a dog-eared mystery novel, looked up from his desk with the kind of slow blink that said Marcus was the last person he expected to see. George set down his book. The cover showed a woman in a red dress running from a mansion. "Harper, the hell you doing here?" "Forgot something. Won't take long." George studied him for a beat, then shrugged. His face had the weathered quality of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. "Elevator's running. Don't make me come get you. Wouldn't dream of it. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt longer than it should have. Marcus stared at his reflection in the polished steel doors, tired eyes, 2 days stubble, a shirt that had been wrinkled since noon. He looked like exactly what he was, a mid-level analyst who'd been treading water for years, too scared to drown and too exhausted to swim. The doors opened with a soft chime. The executive floor was silent, the kind of silence that felt expensive. Thick carpet muffled his footsteps as he walked past darkened offices with nameplates that read like a Forbes list: Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Executive Vice President of Strategic Development. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and something else. Power, maybe. Or just money. Claire Sterling's office was at the end of the hall. Marcus could see her through the glass walls before she saw him. She was sitting at her desk, a massive slab of dark wood that probably cost more than his car, but she wasn't working. Her laptop was closed. Papers that usually covered every inch of surface space were pushed aside in a messy heap that looked obscene in its disorder. And Claire Sterling, the woman who'd once reduced a senior director to tears over a missed decimal point, was crying. Not the polite, controlled kind of crying that people did in bathroom stalls when they thought no one was listening. This was raw, messy, human. Her shoulders shook, her hands covered her face, her hair always smooth, always intimidating, always pulled back in a style that probably required professional help, was falling loose around her face in dark waves. She was holding a photograph. Even from the hallway, Marcus could make out the image, an older man distinguished standing in front of this same building. Her father, he guessed. Dead 5 years now. Marcus froze. This was private. This was something he wasn't supposed to see. He should turn around, get back in the elevator, pretend he'd never come up here in the first place. But then Claire looked up. Their eyes met through the glass. For 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Marcus felt his heart kick hard against his ribs. Claire's face went through a series of expressions so fast he almost missed them. Shock, embarrassment, anger, and then something that looked almost like relief. She stood, crossed the office in 4 long strides, opened the door. Up close, the illusion shattered completely. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes were red and swollen. The perfectly tailored suit she always wore like armor was wrinkled at the elbows. She looked breakable. "Mr. Reed?" Her voice was hoarse, scraped raw. "What are you doing here?" He had no good answer. "I saw your light on." She stared at him. "And you came to check on me?" "I don't know why I came," he admitted. It was the most honest thing he'd said all week. Claire's jaw tightened. She looked like she was going to tell him to leave, to forget what he'd seen, to never speak of this again. But instead she stepped back and held the door open wider. "Come in, please." Marcus stepped inside. The office was exactly as intimidating as he'd imagined, wall-to-wall windows overlooking the city, modern art that probably cost 6 figures, shelves lined with awards and industry accolades. But tonight it felt different. Smaller somehow. More human. Claire closed the door and leaned against it. She didn't sit, didn't try to compose herself. She just stood there looking at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You're going to ask what's wrong?" "I wasn't planning to." That seemed to surprise her. "Why not?" Marcus shrugged. "You'll tell me if you want to, or you won't. Either way, it's not my business." Claire let out a breath that might have been a laugh if it hadn't sounded so broken. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect? Someone who'd run." She pushed off the door and walked back to her desk. For a moment Marcus thought she was going to sit down and dismiss him. Instead, she turned and looked at him with an expression that made his stomach flip. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to say yes." Every instinct Marcus had screamed danger. "What kind of something?" Claire crossed her arms. It was a defensive posture, but on her it still looked commanding. "There's a wedding Saturday night. Family wedding. My cousin. It's—" She stopped, took a breath. "It's the kind of event I can't miss. And I can't go alone. So bring a date." "I don't have one." "Then don't bring one. It's not that simple. Claire's voice went tight. My ex-fiancé will be there. My mother will be there. And if I walk in alone, it will confirm everything they already think about me. That I'm cold, incapable of connection, married to my work and nothing else. She paused. I need someone to come with me, someone who can play the part convincingly, someone who won't ask questions or expect anything afterward. Marcus stared at her. You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend? Yes. You're serious? Completely. Why me? Claire met his eyes. Because you're stable, respectable. You have a daughter, which makes you seem grounded. You don't gossip. You won't leverage this for career advancement. And, she hesitated, and you just walked into a storm to check on someone you barely know. That says something. Marcus's head was spinning. This was insane. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. Not to people like him. What if I say no? Then I go alone, Claire said quietly. And I survive it. I always do. There was something in the way she said it, I always do, that hit him harder than it should have. It wasn't confidence, it was resignation. The voice of someone who'd been surviving for so long they'd forgotten what it felt like to actually live. Marcus thought about Lily, about the mortgage payment due in 2 weeks, about the fact that his direct supervisor reported to someone who reported to someone who reported to Claire Sterling, and saying no to the CEO, even in a situation this bizarre, felt like signing his own professional death warrant. But that wasn't why he was going to say yes. He was going to say yes because he recognized that look in her eyes. He'd seen it in the mirror for months after Jessica died. The exhaustion of holding yourself together when all you wanted to do was fall apart. One condition. Claire raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating. You tell me the truth afterward. About why this matters so much. About what you're really afraid of. She went very still. For a moment he thought she'd take it back, tell him to leave, forget the whole thing, but then she nodded once, sharp and final. Deal. Then yes, I'll do it. Claire's shoulders dropped an inch like a weight had lifted. Thank you. She glanced at her watch, expensive, minimal, probably cost more than his monthly salary. The wedding starts at 7 Saturday. We need to leave by 6. I'll have a suit sent to your apartment. I don't live close, and the buses aren't running. Then you'll stay here. It wasn't a question. Claire walked to a door Marcus hadn't noticed before and opened it to reveal a small room with a leather couch, a private bathroom, and a closet. I keep a spare suit on hand. It'll fit well enough. Get some rest. I'll wake you at 5. Marcus looked at the couch, then back at her. Where will you be? Working. I can't sleep. The words came out flat, matter-of-fact. I haven't been able to sleep in weeks. So I work. It's what I'm good at. She turned away before he could respond. 5 a.m., Mr. Reed. Don't be late. The door closed between them. Marcus stood there for a long moment, feeling like he'd just agreed to something far more dangerous than a fake date. Then he stepped into the small room, closed the door, and lay down on the couch that was somehow more comfortable than his own bed. Through the door he could hear the faint sound of Claire typing. Steady, relentless, the sound of someone who'd forgotten how to stop. He didn't sleep. At 4:58 a.m. the door opened. Marcus sat up, disoriented. For a second he forgot where he was, forgot about the storm, the wedding, the deal he'd made. Then Claire stepped into the room and it all came rushing back. She'd changed. The wrinkled suit was gone, replaced by a sleek black dress that probably cost more than he made in 3 months. Her hair was pulled back in a style that looked effortless but definitely wasn't. Her makeup was flawless. The crying woman from 5 hours ago had vanished completely, replaced by the CEO everyone feared. You're awake. Hard to sleep when your brain's screaming that you've made a terrible decision. Claire's mouth twitched. It might have been a smile. The suit's hanging in the closet. Shower if you need to. We leave in 45 minutes. She turned to go, but Marcus stopped her. Claire. She looked back. Are you okay? It was a simple question. The kind people asked 100 times a day without meaning it. But Marcus meant it, And Claire seemed to know that because her expression shifted just for a second into something softer. "Ask me again after tonight." Then she was gone. Marcus found the suit hanging exactly where she'd said. It was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored with a white shirt and a dark tie that looked like it cost more than his entire wardrobe. He showered in the marble bathroom, shaved with a razor he found in a drawer, and put on the suit that fit him like it had been made for his body. When he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The exhausted analyst was gone. In his place stood someone who looked like he belonged at a high society wedding, like he could stand next to Claire Sterling and not look like an imposter. Fake it till you make it, he thought. Story of my life. He stepped out of the room at 5:42. Claire was waiting by the elevator wearing a long coat over her dress. She looked him up and down, and something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or approval. "You clean up well. You sound shocked. I'm rarely wrong about people, but I might have underestimated you." She pressed the elevator button. "We need to get our story straight before we arrive." The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. "What story? How we met, how long we've been together, why we kept it quiet." The doors closed. Claire turned to face him. "My family is perceptive. If we contradict each other, they'll know." "How long have we been dating?" 4 months, Claire said without hesitation. "Long enough to be serious, short enough that it's not strange they haven't met you yet." "How did we meet?" "You stayed late one night to finish a report. I was working late as always. We started talking." She glanced at him. "The truth is easier to remember than a lie. Keep it simple." "Why did we keep it secret?" "Office policy, power dynamics. We wanted to make sure it was real before going public." Claire's voice was clinical, like she was presenting a business proposal. "You're a widower. You have an 8-year-old daughter named Lily. You're cautious about introducing new people into her life, which is why I haven't met her yet." Marcus's chest tightened. "You did your homework." "I always do." The elevator reached the ground floor. "One more thing." "What?" Claire turned to face him fully. "They're going to judge you, my mother especially. She'll look at you and see someone who isn't good enough, who doesn't belong, who's clearly using me for career advancement. Don't take it personally. She does it to everyone." "Comforting." "I'm not trying to comfort you. I'm trying to prepare you." Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "If at any point tonight you want to leave, tell me. I'll make an excuse and we'll go. No questions asked." Marcus studied her face, the perfect makeup, the controlled expression, the armor she'd rebuilt in the span of 5 hours. "What about you if you want to leave?" Claire's jaw tightened. "I won't. But if you do, then I'll tell you." Her voice went quiet. "That's the deal, isn't it, honesty?" "After tonight," Marcus reminded her. "You promised." "I remember." They walked out into the storm. The snow had eased from blizzard to steady fall, but the city was still buried under a foot of white. The streets were empty except for a handful of plows working through the night. And there, parked at the curb like something out of a dream, was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. A driver stepped out and opened the back door. Claire slid in without a word. Marcus followed, sinking into leather seats that were heated and smelled faintly of expensive perfume. The door closed, sealing them into a quiet cocoon of warmth. The driver pulled away from the curb. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. Marcus watched the city slide past the window, shuttered shops, empty intersections, a world on pause. Beside him, Claire sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her breathing controlled. "Tell me about your family." Claire didn't look at him. "What do you want to know?" "Start with your mother." "Margaret Sterling." Claire's voice went flat. "She married my father when she was 22. Spent 30 years as the perfect corporate wife, hosting dinners, managing his image, making sure everything looked flawless from the outside. When he died, she expected me to step into his role and her role, run the company but also get married, have children, be the daughter she'd groomed me to be." She paused. "I chose the company." "And she hasn't forgiven you." She thinks I'm broken, incapable of love, too much like my father and not enough like her. Claire's fingers tightened slightly. She might be right. You don't believe that. Don't I? Claire finally looked at him. I work 16-hour days. I can't remember the last time I had dinner with someone who wasn't a client or a board member. I look at couples and feel nothing but... She stopped. It doesn't matter. It does, Marcus said, or you wouldn't have asked me to do this. Claire turned away. My brother will be there too. Owen, he's... A ghost of a smile crossed her face. He's the opposite of me. Easy, charming. Everyone loves him. He works in marketing, shows up to every family event, dates people without treating it like a business transaction. He's what my mother wishes I was. Sounds like you're close. We were. Before I became CEO. Now he looks at me like I'm a stranger. Her voice went quiet. He's not wrong. The car turned onto a tree-lined street where even the snow looked expensive. And your ex-fiancé? Claire went rigid. What about him? You mentioned he'd be there, which means he's still part of your life somehow. He's my cousin's best friend. I can't avoid him. She stared out the window. Nathaniel Cross. We were engaged for 8 months. He proposed at a charity gala in front of 300 people. I said yes because it made sense. He came from the right family, understood the business world, looked perfect on paper. But perfect on paper isn't the same as real. No, it's not. Claire's laugh was bitter. He wanted me to step back. Not give up the company entirely, but delegate more work, less focus on building a life with him. He said I was married to my job and he was tired of being the mistress. I told him the job was there first. He left 3 weeks later. Do you regret it? She was quiet for a long time. I regret that I didn't feel anything when he left. No heartbreak, no relief. Just nothing. Like I'd lost a business partner, not a fiancé. She looked at him. That's what scares my mother. That's what Nathaniel will use against me tonight. The proof that I'm exactly what they think I am, cold, unfeeling, incapable of putting another person first. You're here, Marcus pointed out. Asking for help. That's not nothing. I'm asking for a performance, not connection. Are you... Marcus shifted to face her. Because from where I'm sitting you could have hired an actor, paid someone to play the part and disappear afterward. But you asked me, someone who works for you, someone who will still be there Monday morning. That's not risk-free, Claire. She stared at him like he'd said something in a language she didn't speak. I don't know what I'm doing. Her voice cracked just slightly. I don't know why I asked you. I don't know what I'm hoping will happen tonight. I just know I can't walk into that room alone. Not again. Not with all of them watching, waiting for me to prove them right. Marcus reached out and took her hand. It was an impulse, something he did without thinking. Her fingers were cold, her grip uncertain. For a second he thought she'd pull away. But then her hand tightened around his, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. You're not alone. Don't make promises you can't keep. I don't. The car slowed, then stopped. Through the window, Marcus could see the Fairmont Hotel rising like a palace made of glass and gold. Valets in formal uniforms stood under heated awnings. Luxury cars lined the circular drive, each one worth more than Marcus's annual salary. People in furs and diamonds moved through the snow like it was a minor inconvenience, not a natural disaster. This was a different world, a world Marcus didn't belong to. Claire's hand slipped out of his. Last chance to run. Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman behind the armor, the fear behind the control, the loneliness behind the power. I'm not running. The driver opened the door, and together they stepped out into the storm. Heat hit first outdoor heaters, blasting warmth across the entrance, turning the snow into a curtain of steam. A doorman in white gloves welcomed them with a practiced smile. Inside the lobby was all marble columns and crystal chandeliers, the kind of space designed to make you feel small. Claire didn't look small. She walked like she owned the building, her chin up, her stride confident. Marcus stayed close, matching her pace. A few heads turned as they crossed the lobby, recognition flickering across expensive faces. Claire ignored them all. They reached the ballroom doors. Claire stopped, turned to him. "Ready?" "No," Marcus said honestly. "But let's do it anyway." Her mouth curved. "Good answer." She took his arm. The doors opened and Marcus stepped into a world he'd only ever seen in magazines. A ballroom that seemed to stretch forever, filled with round tables draped in white silk centerpieces that looked like ice sculptures come to life, and at least 200 people in formal wear who all turned to look when Claire Sterling walked in with a man nobody recognized on her arm. The whispers started immediately. Marcus felt their eyes like physical weight. He caught fragments of conversation. "Who is that? Where did she find him? How long has this been going on?" But Claire didn't slow down. She moved through the crowd with the kind of grace that came from years of practice, nodding at acquaintances, accepting air kisses from people whose smiles didn't reach their eyes. And then a voice cut through the noise. "Claire." A woman in a champagne-colored gown stood near the head table, her posture perfect, her expression carved from ice. She was older, 60 maybe, but age had only sharpened her edges. Her jewelry caught the light like small suns. Her gaze could have stripped paint. Margaret Sterling, Claire's mother. "Mother," Claire's voice was even. "You look beautiful. You're late. The storm is an excuse, not a reason." Margaret's eyes shifted to Marcus, and he felt himself being assessed and dismissed in the span of a heartbeat. "And who is this?" Claire's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. "This is Marcus Reed, my boyfriend." The word hung in the air like a grenade. Margaret's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. "Boyfriend?" She repeated the word slowly, testing it. "How unexpected." "We've been seeing each other for 4 months," Claire continued, her voice steady. "I wanted to wait until it was serious before introducing him to the family." 4 months. Margaret's smile was razor thin. "And this is the first I'm hearing of it. How modern of you, Claire, to keep such things private." Marcus felt the subtext like a slap. Another secret. Another way you've shut me out. He extended his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Sterling." Margaret looked at his hand like it was something that had crawled out of the snow. Then, with obvious reluctance, she took it. Her grip was limp, perfunctory. "Reed." She said his name like she was tasting something unpleasant. "That's not a name I recognize. What do you do, Mr. Reed?" Here it was, the moment Claire had warned him about. "I'm a data analyst," Marcus said evenly. "I work at Sterling and Associates." Margaret's eyebrows rose a fraction. "You work for my daughter." "With her," Marcus corrected gently. "Not for her, at least not when we're off the clock." It was a small distinction, but Claire's fingers relaxed slightly on his arm. Margaret's smile sharpened. "How convenient. I'm sure Mr. Reed is very competent." Her tone suggested the exact opposite. "And I'm sure you've thought very carefully about the optics of dating an employee. After all, you've always been so concerned with appearances." The words landed like stones. Claire's face remained perfectly composed, but Marcus felt the tension radiating off her in waves. He stepped in before she could respond. "Actually, Claire's the one who wanted to keep things quiet. I was ready to go public weeks ago, but she was concerned about how it might affect my position at the company. She didn't want anyone to think I was getting preferential treatment." It was a lie, a complete fabrication, but it shifted the narrative just enough. Margaret studied him with new interest. "How noble of you both." She turned to Claire. "Your brother is at the bar. You should say hello before the ceremony starts." Her gaze flicked back to Marcus. "I'm sure Mr. Reed can entertain himself for a few minutes." It was a dismissal. A test. "Can he survive without you?" Claire hesitated. Marcus squeezed her hand gently, then let go. "Go. I'll be fine." She looked at him for a beat too long, then nodded and walked away. Margaret watched her go, then turned back to Marcus with an expression that could have cut glass. Let me be frank, Mr. Reed. I don't know what game you're playing, but I know my daughter. She doesn't date, she doesn't bring men to family events, and she certainly doesn't fall for anyone who works beneath her." Her voice dropped. "So whatever arrangement you two have made, whatever leverage you think you've gained, I suggest you enjoy it while it lasts. Because Claire always chooses the company. Always. And you, Mr. Reed, are not the company." Marcus held her gaze. "You're right about one thing. Claire does put the company first. But maybe that's because she spent her whole life believing that's all she's allowed to be, that wanting anything else makes her weak or broken." He paused. "I think you're wrong about her, and I think she's starting to realize you're wrong too." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You're bolder than you look." "I'm honest. There's a difference." For a long moment they stood there, two people from entirely different worlds, neither willing to back down. Then Margaret smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Marcus had seen all night. "We'll see, won't we?" She turned and walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone in a room full of strangers who were all pretending not to watch him. He exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. This was going to be a very long night. Marcus made his way to the bar, weaving through clusters of guests who spoke in hushed, performative tones that suggested every conversation was being recorded for posterity. He could feel eyes tracking him, not hostile exactly, but curious, assessing, trying to figure out where he fit in the carefully calibrated social hierarchy of a world he'd never been invited to join. The bartender, a young woman with impeccable posture and a smile that had been workshopped to perfection, greeted him with practiced warmth. "What can I get you, sir?" "Whiskey? Neat. Any preference?" Marcus glanced at the shelf behind her. Bottles he couldn't pronounce. Labels that probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget. "Dealer's choice." She poured something amber into a crystal tumbler and slid it across the polished wood. Marcus took a sip and tried not to wince at the price tag he could taste in every drop. Smooth, expensive, the kind of thing people drank when they wanted you to know they had money. "First time at one of these?" The voice came from his left. A man about Marcus's age, maybe a few years younger, with an easy smile and the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers. He wore his tuxedo like it was jeans and a t-shirt, comfortable in a way that suggested he'd been born into rooms like this. "That obvious." The man laughed. "Only to people who know what to look for. Owen Sterling." He extended his hand. "Claire's brother." Marcus shook it, feeling the kind of firm, confident grip that came with a lifetime of handshakes at charity galas and corporate fundraisers. "Marcus Reed. I know. The whole room knows." Owen signaled the bartender for a drink of his own. "My sister walking in with a mystery man that's front-page news in this crowd. You've officially become the most interesting person here, which I'm sure is exactly what you wanted." There was no edge to his voice, just genuine amusement. Marcus found himself relaxing slightly. "I'll try to live up to the hype." Owen's drink arrived, something clear with a twist of lime. He took a sip and studied Marcus with the kind of casual assessment that felt different from Margaret's surgical dissection. "So, 4 months, huh? That's how long you two have been seeing each other." "That's the story." "The story." Owen repeated, his smile widening. "I like that. Honest. Most people would have just said yes." He leaned against the bar. "Can I ask you something? And you can tell me to mind my own business if you want." "Go ahead." "Is she happy?" The question caught Marcus off guard. Not, "Are you using her?" Not, "What do you want from her?" Just, "Is she happy?" Marcus thought about Claire crying alone in her office at 3 a.m, about the way her hand had trembled when she'd asked him to come tonight, about the armor she wore like a second skin. "I don't know. I don't think she knows either." Owen nodded slowly, like that was the answer he'd expected. "She doesn't let people in. Not really. Even when we were kids, she was always—" He paused, searching for the word. "Self-sufficient, like she didn't need anyone. My parents thought it was strength. I think it was just loneliness wrapped up in a prettier package. You care about her. She's my sister." Owen's voice softened. Even if she spent the last 5 years making it very clear she doesn't need me, doesn't need anyone. He looked at Marcus. So if you're here because you actually give a damn about her, not her money, not her position, just her, then I'm glad she brought you. But if you're here for any other reason, I suggest you leave before Nathaniel gets his hooks in you. Nathaniel. Her ex. Owen's expression darkened. He's here somewhere, probably sharpening his knives and waiting for the right moment to remind everyone why Claire's still single. He's charming, he's smart, and he knows exactly how to make her doubt herself. He finished his drink. Fair warning, don't let him get in your head. Thanks for the heads up. Don't thank me yet. Owen clapped him on the shoulder. Survive the night first. Then we'll talk. He walked away, leaving Marcus alone with his expensive whiskey and a growing sense that he'd stepped into something far more complicated than a fake date. The ceremony was beginning. Guests were moving toward their seats, a sea of silk and diamonds flowing in choreographed precision. Marcus scanned the room for Claire and found her near the head table speaking with an older couple who looked like they'd stepped out of a portrait. She caught his eye and gave a small nod. Time to go. He made his way through the crowd. Their table was near the front, close enough to the family that there was no escaping scrutiny. Claire was already seated when Marcus arrived, her posture perfect, her expression calm. But when he sat down beside her, she reached under the table and found his hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Marcus squeezed gently, and she squeezed back once quick, like Morse code. Thank you. The ceremony began with all the grandeur of a royal wedding. The bride, a young woman, Marcus didn't know and would never see again, floated down the aisle in a dress that probably required its own insurance policy. The groom waited at the altar with the kind of nervous joy that felt genuine, untouched by the cynicism that seemed to coat everything else in the room. Marcus watched, but his attention kept drifting to Claire. She sat perfectly still, her face a mask of polite interest. But he could feel the tension radiating off her in waves, the too tight grip on his hand, the way her breathing had gone shallow and controlled the muscle jumping in her jaw every time the officiant said the word love. Halfway through the vows, Marcus leaned close and whispered, "You okay?" "Fine. You're a terrible liar." Her mouth twitched. "I'm an excellent liar. You're just paying attention." The ceremony ended with applause and the traditional kiss. Guests rose from their seats, conversation swelling back to its pre-ceremony volume. Claire released Marcus's hand and stood smoothing down her dress with movements that were just a fraction too precise. "I need air. Now. Just for a minute. The reception doesn't start for another 20 minutes. I'll be back before anyone notices." She was already moving toward the terrace doors before Marcus could respond. He followed because leaving her alone felt wrong, and because Owen's warning about Nathaniel was still fresh in his mind. The terrace was a sprawling expanse of stone and decorative plants covered by a heated awning that kept the worst of the snow at bay. A handful of guests had gathered near portable heaters, smoking cigarettes and making the kind of small talk that sounded important but meant nothing. Claire walked past them without a word, heading for the far corner where the awning ended and the night opened up. She stopped at the stone railing, gripping it with both hands, and stared out at the city. Marcus came up beside her. "Talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about." "Claire." "I'm fine, Marcus." "You're not. And that's okay." She turned to look at him, and in the dim light she looked younger, more vulnerable. The CEO mask was slipping. "I just needed a moment away from—" She gestured vaguely at the ballroom behind them. "All of that? The wedding, the performance. Everyone in there is performing. The bride and groom performing happiness. My mother performing concern. The guests performing interest in a union they'll forget about by next week. It's exhausting." "Is that what we're doing? Performing?" Claire pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. "Aren't we—" Before Marcus could answer, a voice cut through the cold. "Claire Sterling, alone on a terrace at a family wedding. Some things never change." Marcus turned to see a man walking toward them with the kind of easy confidence that set every one of his instincts on edge. tall, impeccably dressed with dark hair styled just carefully enough to look effortless. Handsome in the way actors were handsome, symmetrical, polished, aware of exactly how good he looked. Nathaniel Cross. Marcus didn't need an introduction to know. The way Claire's entire body had gone rigid was confirmation enough. "Nathaniel, I didn't know you'd be here." "Marcus is my best friend. Where else would I be?" Nathaniel's smile was warm, but his eyes were calculating. They flicked to Marcus. "And who's this?" "Marcus Reed." Claire's voice came out flat, controlled. "My boyfriend." Nathaniel's eyebrows rose in what looked like genuine surprise. "Boyfriend? Well, congratulations, Claire. I didn't think you had it in you." The words were friendly on the surface, but the subtext was vicious. "I didn't think you were capable of it." Marcus extended his hand. "Nice to meet you." Nathaniel shook it, his grip just a little too firm, holding on just a little too long. "Likewise." He let go and turned back to Claire. "How long have you two been together?" 4 months. 4 months. Nathaniel's tone was light conversational. "And you didn't mention it at the quarterly board meeting last week. We talked for 20 minutes, Claire. You'd think something like this would come up." "We keep our personal lives separate from work." "Of course you do." Nathaniel's smile sharpened. "That's very you. Compartmentalize everything. Keep it all in neat little boxes so nothing gets messy." He looked at Marcus. "Has she told you about her system, color-coded calendars, scheduled personal time relationships that fit between the margins of quarterly reports?" "Nathaniel," Claire's voice carried a warning. "I'm just curious." Nathaniel continued, ignoring her. "What does dating Claire Sterling look like? Do you have a standing appointment Tuesday evenings from 7 to 9? Romance block subject to cancellation if a client call runs long?" Marcus felt anger spike hot in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "It looks like any relationship. We spend time together. We talk. We figure it out as we go." "You talk." Nathaniel repeated the words like the concept was foreign. "About what?" "The weather." "Her feelings." "Because in the 8 months we were engaged, I'm not sure Claire and I had a single conversation that wasn't about logistics or optics or which charity gala we'd attend next." "That says more about you than it does about her." The air went sharp. Nathaniel's smile didn't falter, but something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. "Careful, Marcus. You've known her for 4 months. I knew her for 3 years. I know exactly who Claire Sterling is. And more importantly, I know who she isn't." "Then you don't know her at all." "Is that what she told you?" Nathaniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me guess. She's different with you. She opens up. She shares things she's never shared with anyone else. She makes you feel special, like you're the one person who finally understands her." He stepped closer. "That's the same story she told me, Marcus. The same performance. And it lasted right up until the moment I asked her to actually prioritize something other than work." "Enough." Claire's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You don't get to do this, Nathaniel. You don't get to show up here and tear me apart for the entertainment of whatever audience you're performing for." "I'm not performing." For the first time, Nathaniel's mask slipped. Beneath the charm, Marcus saw something raw, hurt. "I'm telling the truth. The truth you never wanted to hear when we were together. You can't do this, Claire. You can't have a real relationship. You're too afraid, too damaged, too—" "Stop." Marcus's voice was quiet but absolute. He stepped between them, putting himself physically between Nathaniel and Claire. "You need to walk away. Now." Nathaniel stared at him. "Or what?" "Or I'll make you. And we'll both regret it, but you'll regret it more." For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the wind howling against the awning and the distant murmur of the party inside. Then Nathaniel's smile returned, colder, now sharper. "She'll break your heart." The words were directed at Marcus, but Nathaniel was looking at Claire. "Just like she broke mine. And when she does, don't say I didn't warn you." He turned and walked back inside, leaving Marcus and Claire alone in the cold. Claire didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood there, staring at the place where Nathaniel had been, her breathing shallow and uneven. "Claire, don't." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Don't ask if I'm okay. Don't tell me he's wrong. Just don't." Marcus ignored her. He moved to stand in front of her, blocking her view of the ballroom, forcing her to look at him instead of the ghost Nathaniel had dragged out into the light. "Is he right? Are you incapable of this? Of connection, of putting someone else first?" Her face crumpled. "I don't know." "Then let's find out." Marcus took her hands. They were shaking. "Right here, right now. No performance, no armor, just you and me and the truth." "Why did you really ask me to come tonight?" "I told you. The real reason, Claire." She stared at him, her eyes filling with tears that she furiously tried to blink away. "Because I'm tired." Her voice broke. "I'm so tired of being alone, of walking into rooms like this and having everyone look at me like I'm some kind of cautionary tale. The woman who chose her career over love, the ice queen who can't feel anything. I'm tired of proving I don't need anyone, Marcus, because the truth is—" She stopped, her breath hitching. "The truth is what?" "The truth is, I do need someone." The words came out raw, ragged. "I need someone to look at me and see more than the CEO, more than the quarterly earnings, more than the perfect polished version I show the world. I need someone to see me falling apart at 3 a.m. and not run, not fix me, just stay." Tears were streaming down her face now, cutting tracks through her perfect makeup. "And you asked me because I did stay. I asked you because you're the only person who's looked at me in years and seen a human being instead of a brand." Claire's voice shook. "And I'm terrified that Nathaniel's right, that I don't know how to do this, that I'll hurt you or push you away or—" "Stop." Marcus squeezed her hands. "Stop running the worst-case scenario. You want the truth. Here it is. I don't know if you're capable of a relationship. I don't know if I am either. I've been a ghost for 3 years, Claire, going through the motions, raising my daughter, showing up to work, but I haven't been alive. Not really. Not since my wife died." Claire stared at him, her tears slowing. "Her name was Jessica." Marcus's voice was steady but soft. "We met in college, got married young, had Lily when we were 25. She was—" He paused, remembering. "She was light, you know, the kind of person who walked into a room and made it warmer just by being there. And then one night, black ice on Route 2, and she was gone, just like that. No warning, no goodbye." Marcus. "The first year was survival mode. Get Lily to school, make dinner, pay the bills. Don't think about the empty side of the bed. The second year was worse because the shock wore off and all I had left was the absence. People stopped asking how I was doing. They expected me to be okay, to move on. And I pretended I had because that's what you do." He met her eyes. "But I wasn't okay. I was drowning. And the worst part was I didn't even care. I just kept showing up, kept going through the motions because that's what parents do. That's what responsible people do." He took a breath. "And then tonight I saw you crying alone in that office. And for the first time in 3 years I felt something. Not attraction, not pity, just recognition. Like I was looking at someone who understood what it's like to be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone." Claire's tears fell faster now, but she didn't look away. "So no, I don't know if you're capable of a relationship. But I know you're capable of being honest about how hard it is. And that's more than most people can say." He paused. "Nathaniel's wrong about you, Claire. You're not broken. You're not incapable. You're just scared. And that's okay, because so am I." For a long moment they stood there in the cold, the snow falling around them like static. Then Claire stepped forward and rested her forehead against his chest. Marcus held her without trying to fix. Marcus held her without trying to fix anything, without offering platitudes or promises. Just presence, just proximity. When she finally pulled back, her makeup was ruined and her hair was falling loose. Staying. Before Marcus could respond, the 1,000 Staying. Before Marcus could respond, the terrace door opened and a woman's voice called out, "Claire, they're starting the toasts." Claire straightened, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "We should go back inside." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She looked at him. "But I don't have to do it alone." "Right." She took his hand, and together they walked back toward the light and noise of the ballroom. Inside, the reception was in full swing. Dinner had been served, plates of food so artfully arranged they looked like paintings. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played something classical in the corner. People laughed and talked and performed the rituals of wealth with practiced ease. Claire and Marcus made their way back to their table, where Owen was already seated, nursing a glass of red wine. He looked up when they approached, his eyes immediately zeroing in on Claire's face. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." Claire almost smiled. "So I've been told." They sat down. Marcus noticed that the other seats at their table were occupied now, couples he didn't recognize making polite conversation about vacation homes and investment portfolios. One of the women, a blonde in a dress that probably cost more than Marcus's car, leaned toward Claire with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Claire, darling, it's been ages. How's the company?" "Thriving. We just closed a major acquisition last quarter." "How wonderful." The woman's gaze slid to Marcus like a snake sizing up prey. "And this must be the mysterious boyfriend everyone's talking about. Marcus, was it?" "That's right." "And what do you do, Marcus?" Here it was again, the test, the assessment. "I'm a data analyst at Sterling and Associates." The woman's smile widened. "Oh, how convenient." Claire's hand found Marcus's under the table, her grip tight enough to hurt. "It is convenient." Marcus agreed, his tone pleasant. "I get to work with brilliant people every day, learn from the best in the industry, and occasionally I get to take the CEO out for coffee and pretend I'm not intimidated by her." The woman laughed, but it sounded forced. "How charming." The conversation moved on, but Marcus could feel the judgment settling over the table like fog. These people had already decided who he was: an opportunist, a social climber, someone who'd attached himself to Claire for personal gain. It didn't matter that none of it was true. The narrative was more important than the reality. The toasts began. The best man, Marcus, the groom's brother, stood and delivered a speech that was equal parts heartfelt and funny. The maid of honor followed with a story about the bride that made everyone laugh. Then Margaret Sterling rose from her seat at the head table, champagne glass in hand, and the room went silent. "Good evening, everyone." Margaret's voice carried effortlessly across the ballroom. "For those who don't know me, I'm Margaret Sterling, mother of the bride's cousin, Claire. It's a joy to be here celebrating love and commitment, two things that seem increasingly rare in our modern world." Her eyes found Claire across the room. "My daughter has always been exceptional, driven, successful. She's built an empire that her father would be proud of. But success in business, as we all know, doesn't always translate to success in life." Margaret paused, letting the words hang. "True fulfillment comes from balance, from knowing when to put down the spreadsheets and pick up the relationships that matter." Marcus felt Claire go rigid beside him. "So tonight, I want to toast not just the beautiful couple before us, but all of us who understand that love requires sacrifice. That commitment means showing up, that you can't build a life with someone if you're never actually present." The room erupted in polite applause. Claire's face was carved from stone. Margaret sat down, and the moment passed. But the damage was done. Everyone in the room had heard it, the carefully coded message that Margaret Sterling thought her daughter was incapable of the very thing they were celebrating tonight. Owen leaned across the table. She's unbelievable. Even at someone else's wedding, she can't help herself. Claire said nothing. She just sat there staring at her untouched champagne, her breathing controlled and shallow. Marcus turned to her. "Look at me." She didn't move. "Claire, look at me." Slowly she turned her head. "She's wrong. About you. About what you're capable of. She's wrong." "Is she?" Claire's voice was hollow. "Because from where I'm sitting she just said out loud what everyone in this room is thinking. That I'm so married to my work I'll never make room for anything else." "You're human," Marcus interrupted. "That's what you are. Human. Flawed. Trying to figure it out like everyone else. Your mother wants you to be perfect, and when you're not, she punishes you for it. But that's her problem, not yours." Claire stared at him like he'd handed her something precious. The band started playing and couples began moving toward the dance floor. Owen stood offering his hand to a woman at the next table. The blonde who'd questioned Marcus earlier was pulled onto the floor by her husband. And Nathaniel, because of course he was still here, walked past their table with a woman on his arm, throwing Claire a look that said everything his words hadn't. "See, I've moved on. Why can't you?" Marcus stood and held out his hand to Claire. "Dance with me." She blinked. "What?" "Dance with me. Right now, in front of everyone." "Marcus, I don't care about your mother or Nathaniel or anyone else in this room. I just want to dance with you. So please, dance with me." Claire looked at his hand for a long moment. Then slowly she took it. They walked onto the dance floor together, and Marcus pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. The music was slow, something classical that Marcus didn't recognize. Around them, other couples swayed in practiced rhythm. Claire was stiff in his arms at first, her body tense, her movements mechanical. But as they moved, as Marcus held her steady and didn't let go, she began to relax. Her head came to rest against his shoulder. Her hand tightened on his. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be vulnerable. Let someone in. I've spent so long building walls I don't know how to take them down." "Then don't. Not all at once. Just open a door. Let me stand in the doorway. We'll figure out the rest as we go." She lifted her head to look at him, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression. The fear was still there, but beneath it was something else. Something softer, something that looked almost like hope. And then, without thinking, without planning, Claire leaned up and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative testing, but then Marcus kissed her back, and everything else fell away. The ballroom, the guests, the performance, it all disappeared. And there was only this, the two of them holding on to each other like they were the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus could hear the whispers starting, could feel the weight of 100 eyes watching them. But Claire didn't seem to notice. She was looking at him like he'd just handed her something she'd been searching for her entire life. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me. I can't help it." The song ended. Another began, and they kept dancing, lost in their own world, while around them the performance continued. It was Margaret who finally broke the spell. She appeared at the edge of the dance floor, her expression unreadable. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, watching her daughter dance with a man she clearly didn't approve of. And for the first time all night, Marcus saw something crack in Margaret's perfect facade. Surprise, confusion, and beneath it all, something that might have been fear. Fear that maybe, just maybe, she'd been wrong about her daughter all along. Margaret didn't approach them. She simply turned and walked away, disappearing back into the crowd with the kind of controlled grace that suggested nothing could shake her. But Marcus had seen it, that flicker of uncertainty, the crack in the armor. And from the way Claire's grip on his hand tightened, she'd seen it too. The song faded into another, but they didn't keep dancing. Claire pulled away slightly, her eyes scanning the room like she was suddenly aware of how exposed they were. How many people had witnessed that kiss? How many conversations would start the moment they left the dance floor? I need some air. We just came from outside. I know, She pressed a hand to her temple. I need a minute. Alone. Before Marcus could respond, she was already weaving through the couples on the dance floor with practiced efficiency. He watched her go, torn between following and giving her the space she'd asked for. Owen appeared at his elbow before he could decide. Let her go. She's been doing this her whole life. Retreat, regroup, rebuild the walls. Give her 5 minutes and she'll come back like nothing happened. That's not healthy. No kidding. Owen gestured toward the bar. Come on. You look like you need another drink, and I could use the company of someone who's not performing for the cameras. They made their way through the crowd, and Marcus tried not to notice how many heads turned as they passed, how many whispered conversations stopped mid-sentence. He'd become a spectacle without meaning to the nobody who'd somehow captured the attention of Claire Sterling. At the bar, Owen ordered them both whiskey, and didn't ask Marcus's preference this time. When the drinks arrived, he raised his glass in a mock toast. To survival. We're still here, aren't we? Barely. Owen took a long drink. You handled Nathaniel well, by the way. Most people crumble when he turns on the charm offensive, but you stood your ground. He wasn't being charming. He was being cruel. Same thing in his world. Owen set down his glass. He and Claire were perfect on paper. Same social circles, compatible ambitions, looked great in photographs. My mother was thrilled. She thought Nathaniel would finally make Claire settle down, focus on building a normal life. What did Claire think? Owen's smile turned sad. I think she thought she was supposed to want it. The engagement, the wedding, the whole package. Everyone told her it was the right move, so she said yes. But you can't logic your way into love, you know. And Nathaniel... He paused. Nathaniel loved the idea of Claire Sterling more than he loved the actual person. When she wouldn't change for him, wouldn't become the version he'd already imagined, he got bitter. Is that why he's still here, still trying to prove something? He's here because Marcus is his best friend, and he's trying to prove something because that's what men like Nathaniel do. They can't accept that someone didn't want them, so they spend years making sure everyone knows it was actually their choice to leave. Owen signaled for another drink. But between you and me, I think he still loves her. In his own twisted way. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be a warning. Owen met his eyes. Nathaniel's going to come after you tonight. Not physically, he's too smart for that. But he'll find a way to get in your head, make you doubt what you saw on that terrace, make you wonder if Claire's worth the effort. And you need to decide right now whether you're going to believe him or believe what you felt when you kissed her. This isn't real. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. We're not actually together. This is just what? Owen's expression was unreadable. Just a performance. Just a favor. Because that kiss didn't look fake, Marcus. And the way my sister looks at you doesn't look fake either. So maybe you two are the only ones who don't know what's actually happening here. Before Marcus could respond, a commotion near the terrace doors drew their attention, raised voices sharp and cutting through the ambient noise of the party. Marcus turned to see Nathaniel standing near the entrance, and beside him, looking like she was about to shatter, was Claire. She'd come back inside, but she hadn't made it back to the ballroom. Nathaniel had intercepted her in the corridor just beyond the doors, and whatever he was saying had brought color to her cheeks and steel back to her spine. Marcus was moving before he consciously decided to. Owen called after him, "Don't do anything stupid." But Marcus was already crossing the ballroom, shouldering past guests who gave him reproachful looks for his lack of decorum. He reached the corridor just as Nathaniel's voice rose above the music. "You're lying to yourself if you think this is going to work. You don't know how to be in a relationship, Claire. You proved that with us. You'll prove it again with him. You don't know anything about me and Marcus. I know you." Nathaniel stepped closer. "I know that you're terrified right now. Terrified that he's going to see the real you, the version that works 18-hour days and forgets to eat and can't turn off her brain long enough to actually be present. And when he does see that version, when he realizes that you're never going to prioritize him over a quarterly report, he'll leave, just like I did. You left because I wouldn't become someone else for you. Claire's voice was shaking now. You left because you wanted a wife who'd play supporting actress to your leading man. That's not love, Nathaniel. That's ownership. And what Marcus is offering, that's love. Nathaniel laughed, bitter and sharp. Come on, Claire. He's a data analyst who makes a fraction of what you make. He's raising a kid on his own. You think he's here because he's interested in you as a person. He's here because you're a meal ticket, a way up the ladder. And the saddest part is you're desperate enough to believe otherwise. Marcus saw Claire flinch like she'd been slapped. On cue. Walk away, Nathaniel. Or what on cue? Walk away, Nathaniel. Or what? You'll defend her honor? Please. Nathaniel's smile was all teeth. You've been here for what, 6 hours? I spent 3 years trying to crack that armor, Marcus. 3 years trying to get her to let me in. And you know what I learned? There's nothing underneath. Just more armor all the way down. You're wrong. Am I? Then tell me, has she told you she loves you? Has she said anything that suggests she's capable of feeling anything beyond professional respect? Marcus felt the words land, felt the doubt they were designed to create. Because Nathaniel was right about one thing, Marcus had known Claire for less than 48 hours. What did he really know about her beyond what he'd seen tonight? But then he looked at Claire's face, saw the way she was holding herself together by sheer force of will, and he remembered what she'd said on the terrace. I'm tired of being alone. That wasn't armor, that was truth. She doesn't have to tell me anything. I'm not keeping score. I'm not measuring her emotions against some arbitrary standard of what love is supposed to look like. I'm just showing up. And if that's not enough for you, if you need someone to perform their feelings on command, then no wonder you two didn't work out. Nathaniel's expression darkened. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. You wanted Claire to prove she loved you by changing, by working less, being more available, fitting into the life you'd already planned. And when she wouldn't, you decided she was broken, incapable. But the truth is, you were the one who couldn't love her as she actually is. And you can... Nathaniel's voice dripped with skepticism. You, the single dad with the dead wife and the middle management salary, you're going to be the one who finally cracks the code. The mention of Jessica felt like a punch to the gut, but Marcus didn't let it show. I'm not trying to crack anything. I'm just trying to be here, present, honest. And if that's not enough, then it's not enough. But at least I'm not trying to turn her into someone she's not. Nathaniel stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something shift behind his eyes. Not acceptance exactly, but recognition, like he was seeing Marcus, really seeing him for the first time. You actually believe that? I do. You're going to regret this. Nathaniel's voice went quiet. Both of you. When it falls apart, and it will fall apart, don't come looking for sympathy. You made your choice. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. For a moment neither Marcus nor Claire moved. Then Claire let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in her lungs for hours. Thank you. Stop. I mean it, Marcus. What you just said. Her voice broke. That was true. Every word. I know. But we need to talk. Somewhere private. Not here. She took his hand, and they walked back toward the terrace together. Outside, the temperature had dropped even further, and the snow was falling harder now, thick flakes that caught in Claire's hair and melted on Marcus's borrowed suit. The few remaining smokers had retreated inside, leaving them alone in the corner where darkness felt almost solid. Claire turned to face him, and her composure finally shattered completely. I can't do this, her voice broke. I can't keep pretending I'm fine, that I have it all together, that I'm not terrified every single second that I'm going to fail at work, at this, at everything. Then stop pretending. I don't know how. Yes, you do. Marcus took her cold hands in his. You're doing it right now. You're telling me the truth. That's all you have to do. Claire shook her head, tears spilling over. You don't understand. I've spent my entire life being told that emotions are weakness, that vulnerability is failure. My father ran a company on discipline and control, and when I took over, everyone was waiting for me to prove I couldn't handle it. So I became harder, colder. I pushed everyone away because I thought that's what strength looked like. She pulled her hands free, wrapping her arms around herself. And now I'm 36 years old, and I have everything I'm supposed to want. The company, the money, the respect. But I go home to an empty apartment every night, and I can't remember the last time someone touched me without wanting something in return. Her voice cracked. I'm so lonely, Marcus. I'm so tired of being lonely. Marcus pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as she broke down completely. She sobbed against his chest, deep, wrenching sounds that seemed to come from somewhere she'd kept locked away for years. He held her tighter, one hand tangled in her hair, the other pressed against her back. I've got you. Why are you doing this? Claire asked between sobs. Why are you still here? You don't owe me anything. This was supposed to be simple. One night, one favor, and then we'd go back to normal, but now... She pulled back to look at him, her face wet with tears. Now it's not simple. I know. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone in. I don't know how to be the person you need me to be. I don't need you to be anyone but yourself. That's the whole point. I'm not here because I want you to change. I'm here because I saw you at your lowest, and I didn't run. And you know what I don't want to run? I want to know what happens next. I want to know who you are when you're not performing, when you're not trying to be perfect. What if that person disappoints you? What if she doesn't? Claire stared at him. We figure out if this thing between us is real or just two lonely people finding comfort in the storm. And if it's not real, then at least we tried. At least we were honest. That's more than most people can say. Claire's hands came up to frame his face, her touch gentle despite the trembling in her fingers. I'm scared. Me too. What are you scared of? Marcus thought about Jessica, about the year after she died when he'd been so numb he couldn't feel anything at all, about the slow, painful process of learning to be human again, to let himself want things, to risk the possibility of loss. I'm scared that if I let myself care about you, I'll lose you too. I'm scared that this will end badly and I'll have to explain to my daughter why another person she got attached to disappeared. I'm scared that I'm not enough, that I can't give you what you need because I'm still figuring out how to put myself back together. Claire's eyes filled with fresh tears. You seem pretty together to me. I'm good at pretending too. You're not the only one who performs, Claire. I've been performing stability for 3 years, playing the role of the dad who's got it all figured out. But the truth is, I'm barely holding on most days. And tonight, standing here with you, is the first time in 3 years I've felt actually present in my own life. We're a mess. Yeah, we are. So what do we do? Before Marcus could answer, the terrace door opened and Owen stepped out. He took one look at them, Claire's tear-streaked face, Marcus's protective stance, and held up his hands. Sorry to interrupt, but you two need to get back inside, now. Owen. I'm serious, Claire. Nathaniel's talking to Mother, and from the looks of it, he's telling her exactly what he thinks about your new boyfriend. He's making a scene politely, of course, because that's how people like him operate. But he's planting seeds, asking questions, making sure everyone knows that Marcus works for you and wondering aloud whether that's appropriate. Owen's expression was grim. If you don't get in there and control the narrative, Mother's going to do it for you. And I promise you won't like her version. Claire looked at Marcus, panic clear in her eyes. I should go alone. No. Marcus's voice was firm. We go together. That's the whole point. Remember, you're not alone in this. Marcus, if Nathaniel's telling people about the power dynamics about you working for me, then we tell them the truth. That we kept it private because we were trying to protect both our careers, that we're serious about each other, that we don't give a damn what anyone thinks. He squeezed her hand. Unless you do give a damn, in which case tell me now and I'll walk away. Claire stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus could see the war happening behind her eyes, the part of her that wanted to retreat to handle this alone, to push him away before he could get hurt. And the part of her that was tired of being alone, tired of fighting every battle by herself, tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. Finally, she took a deep breath. Okay. Together. They walked back inside, Owen leading the way. The ballroom felt different now. The energy had shifted from celebration to something sharper, more alert. People weren't dancing anymore. They were clustered in groups, talking in low voices, and Marcus could feel their eyes tracking Claire's progress across the room. Margaret was approaching, her expression smoothed into something politely concerned. "Claire, darling, Nathaniel was just sharing some interesting information about your relationship with Mr. Reed." "Was he?" Claire's voice was steady, controlled. "He mentioned that Mr. Reed is employed at Sterling and Associates, in your department, in fact." Margaret's smile was razor-thin. "I'm curious why you didn't mention that detail earlier. It seems rather relevant, don't you think?" The surrounding conversations died. Everyone was listening now. "I didn't mention it because it's not relevant. Daniel and I kept our relationship private to avoid exactly this kind of speculation. But since Nathaniel seems determined to make it everyone's business, let me be clear. Marcus and I are together. We have been for 4 months. And yes, he works at my company, but that doesn't diminish what we have or make it somehow inappropriate." "Doesn't it?" Nathaniel's voice was smooth, reasonable. He'd materialized beside Margaret like he'd been waiting for his cue. "Come on, Claire, you're the CEO. He's an analyst. The power dynamics alone are managed through proper channels," Claire interrupted. "Marcus reports to a supervisor who reports to a director who reports to someone who reports to me. There are 4 levels of separation. We disclose the relationship to HR. We follow every guideline designed to prevent conflicts of interest. And frankly, Nathaniel, my personal life stopped being your concern the moment you walked out." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "I'm just looking out for you." "No, you're not. You're trying to embarrass me in front of my family because you're still angry that I wouldn't change who I am to make you comfortable. You want everyone here to look at Marcus and see an opportunist, to look at me and see someone so desperate for connection that I'd compromise my ethics. But that says more about you than it does about us." Margaret stepped forward. "Claire, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No, Mother. We're going to discuss it right here, right now, in front of everyone. Because I'm tired of private conversations where you tell me I'm doing everything wrong, where you make me feel like I have to choose between having a career and having a life." Claire's voice rose slightly, gaining strength. "I love my job. I love running the company Dad built. But that doesn't mean I can't also want someone to come home to. And the fact that you can't understand that, the fact that you see those things as mutually exclusive, that's your limitation, not mine." Margaret's face went carefully blank. "I only want what's best for you. What you want is for me to be the daughter you imagined when I was born, the one who'd run the company part-time and focus on being a perfect wife and mother. But I'm not that person, and I never will be. And I'm done apologizing for it." The silence was absolute. 200 people holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Then Owen started clapping. It was slow at first, deliberate, but it carried in the silence, each clap like a gunshot. Other people joined in tentatively at first, then with more confidence. The applause spread through the ballroom like a wave, and Marcus watched as surprise flickered across Claire's face, quickly replaced by something that looked like relief. Margaret's expression remained frozen, but her eyes were bright with anger. Nathaniel looked like he'd been slapped. And Claire stood there in her ruined makeup and her tear-stained dress, holding Marcus's hand like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the earth. And for the first time all night, she looked free. The applause faded. The moment passed. But something had shifted, something fundamental and irreversible. Claire turned to her mother. "I'm leaving now. Marcus and I are leaving. And I don't know when I'll be ready to have this conversation with you again, but it won't be tonight." Margaret opened her mouth, closed it, then nodded stiffly. "As you wish." Claire didn't wait for further response. She turned and walked toward the exit, Marcus at her side. And this time, when people stared, it felt different, not judgmental, but curious, maybe impressed even. Owen caught up with them at the coat check. "That was incredible. Seriously, I don't think anyone's ever seen you like that." "Like what?" "Real." Owen pulled her into a hug. "I'm proud of you, sis." Claire hugged him back tight and fierce. "Thank you for having my back." "Always." Owen pulled away and looked at Marcus. "Take care of her." "Okay. I'll try. That's all I'm asking." They collected their coats and walked out into the storm together. The snow was coming down hard now, turning the world white and soft and new. The valet brought the Mercedes around and they climbed into the back seat, wet and cold and exhausted. The driver pulled away from the hotel and for a long moment neither of them spoke. Marcus watched the city slide past the window, the lights blurred by snow, the streets empty and quiet. Beside him, Claire sat perfectly still, staring at her hands. "Are you okay?" Claire let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. "I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. Ask me next week. Ask me when my mother stops speaking to me and the board starts questioning my judgment and everyone at the office finds out I've been dating an analyst. Regrets." She turned to look at him, and her eyes were clearer than he'd seen them all night. "Not about what I said. Not about you." She paused. "But I'm terrified about what happens next." "So am I," Marcus admitted. "Where do we go from here?" He thought about that. About the fact that in a few hours he'd have to pick up Lily from his mother's house and explain why he'd been out all night. About the fact that he'd have to walk into work on Monday and face people who now knew he was dating the CEO. About the fact that everything had changed in the span of one impossible night and there was no going back. "Honestly, I have no idea." Claire smiled, fragile but real. "That's not very reassuring." "I know, but it's the truth." He took her hand. "The only thing I know for sure is that I don't want this to end here. I don't want to walk away and pretend tonight didn't happen. I want to know what happens next. Even if it's messy. Even if it's complicated. Even if we fail. What if we hurt each other? Then we hurt each other. But at least we tried. At least we were honest." Claire was quiet for a long moment, watching the snow fall outside the window. Then she said very softly, "Come home with me." Marcus's heart kicked hard against his ribs. "Claire." "Not like that." Her voice came quickly. I don't want to be alone tonight. I don't want to go back to my empty apartment and sit with everything that just happened. I want—" She stopped, searching for the words. "I want to know what it feels like to not be alone, just for one night. Is that okay?" Marcus thought about Lily, about the responsibilities waiting for him. But he also thought about the woman sitting beside him, asking for the simplest thing in the world, and acting like it was the biggest risk she'd ever taken. "Yeah, that's okay." The driver turned onto Commonwealth Avenue, where the brownstones stood shoulder to shoulder, like centuries guarding old money. Snow gathered on their steps and window sills, softening the hard edges of brick and iron. The Mercedes slowed in front of a building that looked like it had been transplanted from a European capital, all ornate stonework and tall windows that glowed with warm light from within. "This is me." The driver came around to open her door, and Marcus followed her out into the storm. The cold hit him immediately, cutting through the borrowed suit that had seemed so impenetrable earlier. Claire led him up the steps to a heavy wooden door with brass fixtures that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She punched a code into a discreet panel, and the lock clicked open. Inside the lobby was all marble and mirrors with a chandelier that cast prismatic light across surfaces, polished to a shine. A doorman materialized from somewhere, nodding respectfully at Claire but saying nothing. She walked past him like he was part of the furniture, and Marcus followed, hyper-aware of how his shoes squeaked slightly on the marble. The elevator was the old-fashioned kind, brass gate wood paneling, the sort of thing that probably required a full-time maintenance crew. Claire pressed the button for the top floor, and they rode up in silence. Marcus watched the floors tick by, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settling over him like snow. The elevator opened directly into Claire's apartment, not into a hallway, not into a lobby. The door slid open, and there it was, a penthouse that occupied the entire top floor. All exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, and the kind of minimalist design that screamed expensive. The furniture was modern but warm. The art on the walls looked museum quality, and everything was arranged with the kind of precision that suggested either a very good decorator or someone with severe control issues. Claire stepped out of the elevator and immediately kicked off her heels, leaving them in the middle of the floor. The gesture was so human, so at odds with the perfection of the space, that Marcus almost smiled. "Make yourself comfortable. I need to get out of this dress before I lose my mind." She disappeared down a hallway, leaving Marcus alone in the cavernous living room. He walked slowly to the windows, drawn by the view. Boston spread out below him like a city made of light and shadow, the storm turning everything soft and impressionistic. He could see the Charles River, a dark ribbon winding through the white landscape, the distant glow of Cambridge, the whole world reduced to its essential elements. He heard Claire moving around in another room, the sound of water running, a drawer opening and closing. He should probably text his mother, let her know he'd be later than expected picking up Lily. But his phone had died hours ago. The battery drained, and he was too tired to figure out where Claire kept her chargers. The photographs caught his attention next. They were scattered throughout the space, not prominently displayed, but there. A younger Claire standing between her parents at some formal event, all three of them smiling like they'd been told to. Owen, as a teenager, grinning at the camera with the kind of easy joy Claire had never quite mastered. An older man, her father Marcus assumed, cutting a ribbon at what looked like a building dedication. No recent photos. Nothing from the last 5 years as far as Marcus could tell. Like Claire had stopped documenting her life the moment her father died, and she became CEO. "I hate those pictures." Marcus turned to find Claire standing in the hallway entrance. She'd changed into gray sweatpants and an oversized sweater that looked soft and lived in. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked younger, like this, more vulnerable. "Why keep them?" "Because taking them down would be admitting something I'm not ready to admit." She walked over to stand beside him, looking at the photo of her parents. "That I've become someone my father wouldn't recognize. That I've built a life that looks successful on paper but feels empty from the inside." "You don't know that he wouldn't recognize you." "Yes, I do." Claire's voice was flat. "My father believed in legacy above everything else. Family, continuity, building something that would last beyond him. And I took his company and turned it into something bigger. Yes, but also something colder, more ruthless. He would have hated what I've become. Or he would have been proud that you survived, that you took what he built and made it stronger, that you didn't let grief destroy you." Claire looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "Is that what you tell yourself about Jessica?" The question landed like a punch, but Marcus didn't flinch away from it. "Sometimes. When I can't sleep and all I can think about is how I failed her, how I should have driven that night instead of letting her go alone, how I should have—" He stopped. "Yeah. Sometimes I tell myself she'd be proud that I kept going, that I didn't fall apart, but mostly I just miss her, and I hate that missing her is starting to feel normal." Claire reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm now, steady. "I'm sorry for what happened to her, for what you've been through. I'm sorry, too, for your father, for Nathaniel, for your mother being—" He paused. "The way she is." Claire's smile was sad. "Margaret Sterling is a product of her generation. She married my father when she was barely out of college, spent 3 decades defining herself through him. And when he died, she was left with nothing but expectations and disappointment. She looks at me and sees all the ways I've failed to follow the script she wrote in her head. That's not your responsibility. I know. Intellectually, I know that. But emotionally—" She pulled her hand away and wrapped her arms around herself. "Emotionally, I'm still the little girl trying to prove she's good enough, smart enough, strong enough, and no matter how high I climb, it never feels like enough. Marcus watched her for a moment, seeing past the defensive posture to the exhaustion underneath. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "Why did you really bring me here? And don't say it's because you didn't want to be alone. I know that's part of it. But there's something else. Something you're not saying." Claire was quiet for a long time. Then she walked over to the couch and sat down, curling her legs underneath her. Marcus followed, sitting close but not touching. "I brought you here because I wanted to know what it would feel like to bring someone into my space. My real space. Not the office or a restaurant or some neutral territory where I can control the narrative. I wanted to know if I could do it, if I could let someone see how I actually live." She paused. "And I'm terrified you're going to look around and see exactly what Nathaniel saw. That I'm hollow. That this apartment is beautiful but empty, just like my life. That there's nothing here worth staying for." Marcus looked around the room again, but this time he saw it differently. The perfectly arranged furniture that nobody ever sat on. The kitchen that looked like it had never been used. The art on the walls that was probably worth a fortune but said nothing about the person who owned it. It was a showroom, not a home. A place to sleep between 18-hour workdays, not a place to live. "Can I tell you what I see?" Claire's jaw tightened. "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice." He shifted to face her more fully. "I see someone who spent so long protecting herself that she forgot how to let people in. I see a space that's waiting for permission to become a home. I see potential, Claire. Not emptiness. Potential." "That's very generous of you." "It's not generosity. It's observation." Marcus leaned back against the couch. "You want to know what my apartment looks like? It's chaos. Lily's toys everywhere. Dishes in the sink that I'll wash tomorrow or maybe the day after. Photos of Jessica that I can't bring myself to take down, but also can't look at without feeling like I'm drowning. My place isn't empty. It's cluttered with grief and guilt, and the daily reality of trying to keep a kid fed and clothed and emotionally stable when I'm barely managing to keep myself together." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. But it's also real. It's messy and imperfect, and sometimes I look around and want to burn it all down and start over. But it's mine. It's the life I built from the wreckage. And that matters even when it doesn't feel like enough." Claire pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. "I don't know how to do that. How to build something real. I only know how to build empires. Maybe you start small. Maybe you stop trying to control everything and just exist in your own space with another person without performing." "Is that what we're doing right now? Existing?" "I think so. Yeah." They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the distant howl of wind against the windows. Marcus felt the exhaustion of the night catching up with him, the adrenaline draining away, leaving behind bone-deep tiredness. Beside him, Claire was fighting to keep her eyes open, her body finally surrendering to the weight of everything that had happened. "You should sleep." "I can't sleep. I told you I haven't been able to sleep in weeks." "When's the last time you really tried, not just lay in bed staring at the ceiling while your brain ran through worst-case scenarios?" Claire thought about it. "I don't remember." "Come on." Marcus stood and held out his hand. "You're going to bed." She looked up at him with an expression caught between amusement and uncertainty. "Are you seriously telling me what to do in my own apartment?" "Yes. Someone needs to." He kept his hand extended. "Bedroom, now, before you collapse right here." For a moment he thought she'd argue, but then she took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. She led him down the hallway to a bedroom that was as minimalist as the rest of the apartment, a king-sized bed with white linens, a single nightstand with a lamp, and nothing else. No personal items, no clutter, just a room for sleeping and nothing more. Claire climbed into bed and pulled the covers up to her chin, looking suddenly small in the expanse of white. Marcus sat on the edge of the mattress and she turned to face him. "Stay, please. Just stay until I fall asleep." "Okay. And tell me something. Something real. Something you've never told anyone." Marcus thought about that. about all the things he carried, all the truths he'd never spoken aloud. Finally, he said, "The night Jessica died, we had a fight. Nothing major. Just one of those stupid arguments couples have about whose turn it is to do the dishes. She left angry, and the last thing I said to her was that she was being ridiculous." His voice caught. "She died thinking I was frustrated with her, that I didn't appreciate her, and I can't forgive myself for that, for wasting our last conversation on something that didn't matter." Claire's hand found his in the darkness. "She knew you loved her." "How can you be sure?" "Because love isn't about the last conversation. It's about all the ones that came before. And I'm willing to bet that in the thousands of conversations you had with Jessica, she knew exactly how you felt about her. One argument doesn't erase that." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, a grief he'd been holding at arm's length for 3 years. "I hope you're right." "I'm always right. Haven't you learned that yet?" Claire's voice was getting softer, sleepier. "What about you? What's the thing you've never told anyone?" Marcus hesitated. Then, because she'd asked for truth and he'd promised to give it, "Sometimes I look at Lily and I feel nothing, just emptiness. And it terrifies me because I love her more than anything in the world. But there are moments when I'm so exhausted and so broken that I can't access that love. It's like it's buried under a mountain of grief and responsibility, and I'm too tired to dig it out. And I'm scared that one day I won't be able to find it at all." Claire squeezed his hand. "You'll find it. You always do. That's what makes you a good father." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here, still showing up, still trying. That's all anyone can do." Her breathing was slowing now, evening out into the rhythm of sleep. Marcus sat there in the quiet, watching her face relax, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. She looked peaceful, like this young, like the person she might have been if the weight of the world hadn't landed on her at 31. After a few minutes, when he was sure she was truly asleep, Marcus carefully extracted his hand from hers and stood. He walked back to the living room and stretched out on the couch, pulling a throw blanket over himself. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of snow against the windows and the distant hum of the city below. He should call his mother, should explain where he was, why he wouldn't be picking up Lily until morning, but his phone was dead and the conversation felt impossible to navigate. "How did you explain that you'd spent the night fake dating your CEO, and somewhere along the way it had become real?" Marcus closed his eyes, expecting sleep to be impossible. But exhaustion won out, pulling him under into dreams of snow and ballrooms and a woman who was learning how to stop running. He woke to the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, Marcus couldn't place where he was. Then memory reassembled itself, the wedding, the terrace, Claire's apartment. He sat up on the couch, his neck protesting the awkward angle he'd slept in, and found Claire standing in the kitchen. She was still in her sweatpants, her hair messy, no makeup. She looked softer than he'd ever seen her, more real. And she was making coffee with the kind of intense concentration most people reserved for complex equations. "Morning." Claire turned and a smile touched her lips. "Good morning. I wasn't sure how you take your coffee, so I made it strong, and you can add whatever you want." "Strong is perfect." Marcus stood and walked over to the kitchen island, accepting the mug she handed him. The first sip was exactly what he needed, dark, bitter grounding. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." She leaned against the counter. "I woke up around 6, which is late for me, and for a second I couldn't remember why I felt different. Then I remembered last night." "Yeah, last night." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened settling between them. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a city buried in white. "Now." "Probably." "I don't know how to do now." "Probably." "I don't know how to do this, Marcus. The morning after conversation. The what are we discussion. I've never been good at relationships, and I'm even worse at defining them." "Then let's not define it. Let's just see what happens. Take it one day at a time. No pressure, no expectations. Just honesty." Claire studied him over the rim of her coffee mug. "You make it sound simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. We like each other. We're attracted to each other. We both know what we're getting into, the risks, the challenges, the fact that everyone at the office is going to have opinions. But we do it anyway because the alternative is walking away and always wondering, what if? What about Lily? The question surprised him. What about her? You said you're cautious about introducing new people into her life. And I understand that, I respect that. But if we're going to try this, really try, then eventually she'll need to know. And I don't want to be the person who disrupts her world. Marcus set down his coffee mug. Lily is 8 years old. She's smart, she's resilient, and she's been asking me for the last year why I don't have a girlfriend. She knows I'm lonely. Kids always know. And if I introduced you to her when I introduce you to her, it won't disrupt her world. It'll show her that it's okay to move forward, to take risks, to let people in even when you're scared. You've thought about this. I've thought about everything. Marcus moved closer. I've thought about how this could go wrong, how it could hurt both of us, how it could complicate everything at work. But I've also thought about how it felt to kiss you last night, how it felt to hold you on that terrace, how it feels to be here right now in your apartment having this conversation. And I don't want to walk away from that because it's safer. I'm tired of safe, Claire. I'm ready for real. Claire set down her own mug and crossed the small distance between them. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his stubbled jaw. I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to work too much. I'm going to forget to call. I'm going to prioritize a client meeting over dinner plans and then hate myself for it. I'm going to be difficult and complicated and probably impossible sometimes. I know. And you still want to try? I still want to try. She kissed him, then soft and slow and full of promise. Marcus wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her closer. And for a moment the world narrowed to just this, her mouth on his, her body against his, the taste of coffee and the smell of her shampoo, and the quiet certainty that this was right even if it was complicated. When they finally pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead against his. I need to tell you something about why I was crying that night. The real reason. You don't have to. I want to. She took a breath. The board has been pressuring me to step down. Not officially. Not in any way that would show up in meeting minutes. But there have been conversations. Suggestions that maybe it's time for new leadership. That maybe I'm too young, too inexperienced, too... She stopped. Too much like my father in all the wrong ways. Marcus went still. They want to push you out. They want me to choose to leave, to step into a board position, take on an advisory role, let someone else run the day-to-day operations. Her voice cracked slightly. And part of me wonders if they're right. If I've given everything to this company and it still isn't enough. If I'm fighting a battle I can't win. What do you want? I want to prove them wrong. I want to show them that I can run this company and have a life. That I'm not my father. I'm better, stronger, more capable of balance. She looked up at him. But I don't know if I can do it alone. You're not alone. Not anymore. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. That's what scares me. Because if I let myself believe that if I let myself lean on you and then you leave, I don't know if I can survive it. Then we don't leave. We stay. We fight. We figure it out together. And when it gets hard, and it will get hard, we don't run. We talk. We're honest. We choose each other even when it's difficult. You make it sound like a business deal. Maybe that's the only language you trust right now. So fine, let's make a deal. Marcus took both her hands. I promise to show up, to be present, to tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable, to prioritize you not because I have to, but because I want to. And in return you promise to let me in, to be honest about what you're feeling, to stop trying to control everything and just be human with me. Claire stared at him for a long moment. Then very quietly she said, Deal. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. And Marcus knew that this was it, the moment where everything changed, where a fake date at a family wedding became something real, something that would require work and compromise and probably more honesty than either of them was comfortable with. But as he looked at Claire standing in her empty kitchen in her sweatpants and messy hair, looking more beautiful than she had in her designer gown, he knew it was worth it. All of it was worth it. His phone buzzed from somewhere in the living room, apparently having found enough charge to come back to life. Marcus reluctantly pulled away to check it and found a string of texts from his mother. "Lily's fine. Having breakfast? No rush. Actually, take your time. She told me you had a date. About time. Call when you're ready. Love you." Marcus smiled and showed the text to Claire. "My mother's giving us her blessing, apparently. She doesn't even know me. She knows I haven't been on a date in 3 years. That's enough for her." Marcus pocketed his phone. "I should probably head out soon. Pick up Lily. Go home. Figure out what to tell her about last night. You're going to tell her about me. Eventually, when the time is right. When we're both ready." He paused. "What about you? What happens when you walk into the office Monday?" Claire's expression shifted back into something harder, more controlled. "I deal with it. The whispers, the speculation, the questions about whether I'm compromising the company by dating an employee. I schedule a meeting with HR, make sure all our documentation is in order, and I prepare for the board to use this as another reason I'm not fit to lead. And if they do, then I fight back." Claire's voice was steel. "I've spent too long building this company to let them take it from me because I dared to have a personal life, and if they want to make an issue of it, I'll remind them that my personal relationships are none of their business as long as I'm managing the conflicts appropriately." Marcus felt a surge of pride. There she is, the CEO who terrifies everyone. "I don't terrify you. Not anymore." He pulled her close again. "You intrigue me. You challenge me. You make me want to be braver. But you don't terrify me." Claire's smile was soft, genuine. "Good, because I'm tired of being terrifying. I want to be—" She searched for the word. "Real. I want to be real." "Then be real. With me. With yourself. With everyone. Stop performing and just exist as you are. Messy and complicated and absolutely worth knowing." She kissed him again, and this time there was no hesitation, no fear, just certainty, just choice. When they finally pulled apart, the morning sun was streaming through the windows, turning the snow-covered city into something magical. Marcus looked at Claire, really looked at her, and saw the woman behind the armor, the person who was learning to stop running the CEO, who was figuring out how to be human. And he knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning, not the end of their story. The beginning. 3 months later, Marcus stood in Claire's office on a Friday afternoon, watching her finish up a call with a difficult client. She handled it with the same precision she brought to everything, firm but fair, clear about boundaries, unwilling to compromise on quality. When she hung up, she looked exhausted but satisfied. "Ready? Ready." Claire stood, grabbing her coat. "Lily's expecting us by 6, right?" 6:30. She's making dessert. Fair warning, there will be chocolate chips everywhere." They left the office together, no longer trying to hide. The whispers had mostly died down. The board had backed off, at least for now. Marcus had been promoted on merit. Janet had made very clear, and Claire had started leaving the office by 7 most nights. It wasn't perfect. They still fought about work-life balance. Claire still missed dinners sometimes. Marcus still struggled with the public scrutiny. But they were trying. Every day they were trying. And slowly, impossibly, it was working. As they walked out into the spring evening, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Is Claire coming?" "I made extra cookies." He showed it to Claire, who smiled the soft, genuine smile that she saved just for moments like this. "She's gotten attached." "So have I." Marcus took her hand. "Is that okay?" Claire squeezed his fingers. "It's more than okay. It's everything." They walked toward the parking garage together, toward Lily and cookies, and the messy, beautiful reality of a life they were building together. One honest conversation, one brave choice, one day at a time. And Marcus realized that sometimes the best things in life started with a stranger asking for help in the middle of a storm. Sometimes when you were brave enough to say yes, you found exactly what you didn't know you were looking for. Home.